beneficiary in the Sum 9, where we have been the partner. But of course, that doesn't mean anything. And I hope you find my presentation useful. I will switch to slides now. But the story of life is that if some years ago I could really in full conscience give you a presentation how to prepare a good proposal to LIFE program, nowadays I can do something like this. My thoughts about how to maybe prepare a good proposal to LIFE program, because LIFE program has changed dramatically the format, the application system, the chapters you have to fill, everything. So we are all experimenting this year. And if you are planning to submit the LIFE application this year, I tell you, you should have started already, because it is very huge job to package everything differently and start thinking differently in different concepts and in different terms. But if you haven't been dealing with LIFE before, maybe your task is even easier nowadays, because maybe this format will be easier for you as well. So I will guide you through the application process and to the program to best of my knowledge, and I hope you find this useful. If you have any questions, please ask any moment. Just raise your hand, like your virtual hand, and then Agnes will let me know that there is a question. I will have also a place for questions at the end of the presentation, but it's up to you when to ask, because I personally prefer to ask when the question pops to my mind rather than later on. Yes, I hope you find this useful, and special greetings to my friends from BEF. I see that there is Rita in Biudžetas, so hi guys. Yes, okay, back to the serious business. So, contents of a new proposal. We have administrative forms. We have part B, which is basically the core document of the all technical information about your project that you want to put in. Then we have part C, that are the key performance indicators. And there are also some mandatory annexes and some non-mandatory annexes. So as you see, the structure is mixed also in the way that A forms you fill in online in the new e-grant system. I will have some slides later on. Part B is you download the file from the system and you fill in the doc file, and then later you transfer it to PDF format and upload back on the e-grant system, which is kind of clumsy if compared to the previous LIFE e-proposal system. I think things have gone down in that sense, but we have what we have. The upside from having part B as a doc file to work with is that you can put in some kind of schematics, or you are more free with visual material to put in the part B, where you describe all the technical activities. So in that sense, it is maybe an improvement. You probably noticed that I did not start my presentation from the basics of what is LIFE program and what it funds, but I assume if you are here in this seminar, you sort of know that already, so I wouldn't waste your time on that. And indicators are, again, this part C filled online. There is this online grid where you choose which indicators you take for your project, or you fill in also mandatory indicators. There are two types of them. We will get to that later as well. I will guide you through all these parts later in a slower pace, but this is the overall picture of the proposal. We have administrative forms part A, we have part B technical forms, we have indicators, we have annexes. Make sure you keep the 120 pages limit for this part B technical form. Yeah, maybe one more thing to say. My experience comes mostly from writing nature applications, and my examples and all that will be from nature. the differences between different strands in new program are really depending on which strand you look at. So I figured that Agnes said that if you are interested in circular economy strand, you should look at the pre-recorded presentation from Latvian seminar. There you have information precisely for that strand. But basically, the strands are not these technical parts and administrative forms are not that different. There are some topics that need to be emphasized for one or other strand, and of course, the indicators differ and annexes differ, and some of the additional information differs. But basically, you will get a good feeling from hearing from me about the nature, because I cannot tell you about all the strands. It would be too general presentation. So stick to the 120-page limit for your Part B doc transfer to PDF. Make sure you don't exceed it, because they will be just taken off the system. And check, of course, that they appear there. My very, very serious advice is to not wait till the last moment, because that system is crashing from time to time. And it is overloaded, obviously, so please don't wait until the end to submit your proposal. Start filling in parts gradually. Of course, the major part will be Part B, the one file that you will be working on in your computer. But if you have some kind of already almost finished file, maybe try, uploading that and checking it out before the last days of the application as well. What else is important from the general issues? Yes, you could submit and resubmit it again, just like it was in the previous system. You can try submitting everything, and then you can submit the new version that just overrides the previous version. So don't worry trying to submit it before the call deadline. All right. So A forms. Sorry, I forgot one very important thing. PIC numbers. These magic PIC numbers are the identification numbers for organizations to be able to enter participants in the e-grant system. In the previous LIFE e-proposal, you were asked to enter the PIC number, I think, but it wasn't obligatory, and it was not, you didn't have to register through it. In this case, you need to have PIC number assigned to your organization. So all the partners in the project, not only the lead beneficiary, but all the partners need to have been registered on the EU portal for organizations. So it is explained in guidelines, but you make sure that you start your PIC registration timely. So you don't, for example, in our new application that we are writing this year, we have farmers as partners. We have 9 farms. They have never heard of any PIC numbers. So we have to help them to register in this EU system to get the PIC number to be able to enter them as participants in the project. So remember that, and check about PICs. Don't leave it for the last day, because it might take a bit of a time to get it done. Okay, then Part A, administrative forms. They're filled online, and they consist of general information, participants, budget, and other questions. The budget is only a summary, so it's like one very small table in this administrative part. So you fill it online, so you follow what the system tells you to do, and don't worry about entering the information in the beginning. You will be able to change most of it, but you won't be able to change the acronym of the project that you enter when you enter the project for the first time. So make sure you are sure about the acronym you want, and also the project strand and type, and the lead beneficiary. These are 3 things you won't be able to change afterwards. So make sure you know who is what and enter those. The other things you will be able to change afterwards in the system anytime by going back and adjusting these forms. Okay. This is very simple. A forms are really simple part, and that would not take too much of a time. And when you have registered your project, gone through these first steps, this is your main scope or desktop where you work. This is the project. I have taken it from I have made screenshots from our new project that we are writing. So, and I have added some explanations there. So this is what you will see. And by clicking this button, Edit Forms, it will lead you to the A forms, the ones I mentioned already before. This is where you can edit them afterwards and go back always to edit them. Then you also have a button, Edit Part C, which is indicators. We will talk about it later, View History and Print Preview. And very important thing, once you have gone through these first steps and get this window, please go here and download Part B templates. These are the templates for all the technical information that you need for this Part B, which is technical part. Don't take the templates from general sections. Take them from here, because this will be your the most recent and most appropriate ones, the ones ready for filling in. So make sure to use this field for taking the templates for your B part. And then you download them and you start working on things. But there are a few things to say before that about the participants. Yeah, here we go. Here down there you have a participants list, validate and submit. Of course, validate and submit is clear. Well, validate button lets you check whether there are still any mistakes and inconsistencies in the application that would prevent you from submitting it. And when you have validated it, you can submit it. But by hitting this button, you get the participants list. The one I mentioned, this is our, for example, we are lead beneficiary, Latvian Fund for Nature. So we have our name, our PIC, and our director has been entered as a main contact, and I have been entered as a contact person with all the editing rights. And here you add partner. So by hitting this button, you add new partners, partner number 2, partner number 3, partner number 4, and so on. And you will have to fill the same information on them. By entering the PIC number, you find that the organization in the database, and enter the contacts then and give them rights to edit the application. But if you don't have this PIC number, you cannot do that. You cannot add partner. So make sure you or your partners do have them. Now we go to my favorite part of the application, which is Part B. Okay, so Part B is this PDF that I mentioned already, that you generate from saving your document, your Word document. I mentioned already that you download the templates from here. And then there are some mandatory annexes and non-mandatory annexes, which are actually also quite mandatory in the case of nature, for example. So this is your Part B. Then you have a detailed budget table. I will show you in a minute. Then you have participant information, where you describe each partner and key staff within the partner, which is new. You didn't have to do it before in LIFE applications. Now you have to describe the staff also in the partner. The rest is pretty much the same as before. Short information about the organization and so on. Then you have your letters of support, if you have any. You have co-financing declarations, again, if you have any. For Life Nature, you have obligatory annexes, maps, description of sites, and description of species and habitats. Description of sites if you have an area-based project, and species or habitats if you have species and habitats that you address. And then other annexes. I'm quite conflicted, and I don't know what to advise you in terms of how many annexes to add. Because in previous LIFE system, my approach was that we tried to give enough information to all the questions that the evaluators might have. For example, cost efficiency. We took pains to make an annex explaining the cost efficiency of the project, explaining major cost categories, comparing the costs with the costs in the region, so that they see, by looking at the annex, so they see for sure that we have considered this aspect, and we really made sure that our project is cost efficient. In the new LIFE application, I am not sure about additional annexes, because in some places they say additional annexes won't be looked at, and but in other places they say if you have something to say, put it in annex. So I'm sorry, but I don't know what to advise to you. We will learn it by trial and error this year. I personally decided that I will add some annexes, but nothing that can't be, how to say, nothing crucial in the sense that if, for example, that annex is not looked at, there is still some information from that annex also in the text of the application, in the core document in Part B. Anyway, and the system here is like this, that you take the templates from here, you fill them in on your computer, you transfer them to these formats, checking the size also, and then you upload them here. Strange, but this is how it is. So, okay. Then we go to Part C, which is the indicators. Please be reminded to open this page with Chrome. Because I usually work on the old school Mozilla Firefox in my computer, and when I click on Part C, which is this button here, I get just a blank white window in my screen. And I was wondering whether it should be like this or not. You know, it's the first time I read this application, so I have no idea. I wondered for some days. I tried from different computers the same story. And then I just wrote to Commission and asked whether it's correct, whether there's no mistake. And they say, yeah, well, you know, you should take care to open it with Chrome. When I open it with Chrome, then it works. So open it with Chrome. Anyway, yes, the indicators. So once you hit this button, you get to this kind of additional page where you have indicators. You have horizontal indicators, key performance indicators, KPIs, that are the same for all the strands: innovation, governance, catalytic effect, financial, spatial, thematic, and so on. So these are the ones where you mostly answer with yes and no, which is straightforward. You just follow the system and click there. But then you get to the tricky part where you have these you have to decide whether you want to add additional indicators or not. And I would recommend you to not be lazy and click other project-specific KPIs and enter the indicators that best illustrate your project. Because if you only fill these mandatory, that doesn't really say much about your project. If you are out of time and you don't have space in your head for thinking about it, then of course do the part that is the minimum part. But I would strongly advise you to click and work on project-specific indicators as well. Like if you are dealing with restoration areas, of course, areas that you restore, specific habitats, hectares, maybe added income streams to farms, try to quantify, or stuff like this. It's very project specific, of course, but it is important because they pay a lot of attention to these indicators. And of course, the indicators cannot be separate from the application, the total application. So if you have indicator this and this, like for example, if you say we will restore 280 hectares of habitat, this and this, you should have this here in the indicators and also in the technical parts, in the outputs, in objectives and so on, and the task description. So you have to make sure that it's coherent between the parts as well. All right. Oi, somebody is making noise there. Anyway, I hope you still hear me. I'm not still alone here looking in the empty screen. Content of the new proposal, the last part I haven't mentioned are those annexes, and there is mandatory annexes for nature strand, which is detailed budget and participant information. And there's also non-mandatory annexes that, as I already said, as described in B section, that are mandatory for the nature section. So here we go. Here are the annexes, and here is the detailed budget table. This detailed budget table confused me to a great deal because it didn't have personnel. So again, I wrote the European Commission to SINEA and asked them, is there really is not a mistake? that the detailed budget does not contain personnel. And they said, no, it's not a mistake. They don't want to see personnel here. Personnel is only described under the tasks in the tasks section of the B form, where you only describe the workloads per personnel. As you know, we used to describe workloads and also the costs associated, daily costs and so on. In this case, you will only describe the workloads, and they will just, and the total project cost for personnel per partner, and that's it. And that total personnel cost comes in the A section, where you have a summary table of just like personnel, travel, and so on. So it's a very confusing system. It's part of simplification, I assume. So let's try to live with this. But again, make sure that you detail your personnel in these task descriptions, in those task descriptions where you describe the tasks, because you have to justify your personnel somehow. And the fact that they don't give you a form doesn't mean that they won't try to assess how cost efficient is your project in terms of personnel. It's just that it will be more difficult for evaluators to figure it out from the information you provide them in the new format. Anyway, this is how it is. And then we have a strange, I think it's Horizon system with subcontracting here, where you just enter line by line or the subcontracting, which used to be external systems in life. So you enter it here. And for other direct costs, which is not old other costs, but now it's just other direct costs that include all the other costs that are not external assistance. So other direct costs, which include travel, equipment, other goods, works and services, infrastructure, financial support to third parties, and land purchase. So here you just, it will be an experiment for all of us, how detailed you do this part. Because you have one this kind of table for each partner, but we know life projects are huge, and this will be hundreds of entries per partner. So I cannot really give you very good advice on how to do this. This is the form we've given, and we haven't been given much, actually any guidance on this. So we will try experimenting. I think I will just try to add the descriptions and linking these cost positions that I enter here with the task descriptions. But it's up to you how you do that. Like, for example, I would say cost 2,000 euro. Justification would be travel to study tours to Lithuania to visit projects, say task 322 or something like that. That's the way I figured that out, but maybe it's wrong. I don't know. As I said in the beginning, we are all guessing here this year, and it's very, very different from the previous lab program. I also would recommend that you keep your own full cost file. I personally will just use the old life budget format for planning our costs and then just transfer them to here in a way, but because this is not very easy to work in my understanding. Okay, we have gone through the first part of general overview on how all these forms look, and I wonder if there are any questions by now.
Hello, I have one question.
Okay.
So regarding the subcontracting, if the subcontracting is more than 30%, we have to give like specific reason for that. Do you have any opinion? Is it seen rather than negative thing if subcontracting exceeds 30%, or is it totally okay? Just we have to really give arguments and how to write this part. Then maybe have some experience or opinion.
It is not like a total no to have more than 30% in subcontracting. If your project, for example, if you have some kind of very large service that needs to be subcontracted to somebody else, which is a crucial part of the project, I think it would be fine. You just have to justify why you have to take it as a service, why you cannot do it with your own capacities, and there are millions of reasons why the organization might not be able to do that, and so on. So it is not it is not something that shouldn't be done. And I would, we have also had, for example, nature restoration projects where we exceeded those 30% in the subcontracting because all the, I don't know, bush cutting and all the restoration works and all the land works would be subcontracted to somebody else. Of course, our organization wouldn't have the tractors and means to do all that. And that was a sufficient justification as well. So I think if you have a good reason for having more than 30%, go for it. Just make sure you really explain it and explain why you haven't had this scenario that your consortium does the work themselves.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Any more questions at this stage?
Yes, Inga, I have a question. It's Oshra. How do you determine what costs should be added to external assistance and what costs to other costs? Because my feeling is that only considerable costs should be added to external assistance, like those that exceed at least 30,000 euros.
That is a very good question. I haven't myself started working on a budget, and I don't really know whether there is a specific guidance on that. You probably have looked at it already, Asha, maybe you know more. But if there is no guidance, I personally will just do it the way as for old life program. I will have everything, also smaller external assistance as subcontracting, and then other goods, works and services would go there, but I'm not sure. Yeah. That's a very good question. You know, we could look at it later. I haven't started working in the budget, and I'm now really wondering myself. So you think that maybe subcontracting should be something that is like where you subcontract significant parts of the project, or what?
The description is that the subcontract is that you should subcontract only when you subcontract a considerable part of the one of the action, meaning if you subcontract only a video conference, a service provider for the conference, it's not a considerable part of your action. As far as I understood, subcontracting should be only the considerable amounts, like half of the action, for example.
Then it might be, as you say, that here most of the classical projects won't enter anything and everything would go down here. Right? Because we usually don't subcontract. I think this is something worth looking at more in detail, because I also went through the frequently asked questions yesterday. I will also give you the link at the end of the presentation. And I didn't really see the answer there, but maybe it's still time to write and ask them this, because yeah, it's very confusing. And I'm sorry, I won't be able to give you a direct answer. I was thinking of doing this, putting the larger contracts here, but now you really made me reconsider that maybe we need to put everything here. So maybe we can agree that this question remains open, and then you could also advise, we could talk about it after the seminar, after checking with the CINEA and European Commission, and answer the participants later on this.
Okay, okay, thanks.
It's a very good question.
Thank you.
Okay. So we go to Forms B, which consists of several major parts, which is relevance, impact, implementation, resources, and then other and declarations, which are the smaller parts. So the B form, here we go. As I already mentioned, page limit is 120 pages. Supporting documents can be provided as an annex and do not count towards the page limit. You should be careful with the font size, and you cannot use smaller font than Arial 9 for the application, and keep the same A4 standard page size. And also there's a description of margins, so you sort of look more or less the same. They also say do not use hyperlinks to show information. This is an essential part of your application. I found it difficult because quite often we have, like, when you're justifying your methodologies, know that normally you would put link to the online source where it is. And in this case, if you cannot do that, what do you put? Not everything is in scientific references. So I'm still putting hyperlinks in, but I'm assuming nobody will click on them. But I haven't found any good way to circumvent this. And if you attempt to upload an application that exceeds the limit, you will receive an automatic warning asking, and it will just cut the last part. So make sure, I already mentioned that, make sure you do not exceed the limit. And do not delete any instructions in the forms, which is kind of maddening because they are quite long in some places, and it takes a lot of your very useful, very much needed 120 pages space. But you are not allowed to do that. It's not my recommendation, it's the recommendation from the forms. So relevance. So this is where you get the technical description of your project, and you describe the background and general objectives. So you start by adding quite similar information to what you had in the previous slide. So you describe the problems, you describe the needs, you quantify the conservation issue and threats, you explain clearly why this problem is a problem and how big is the problem. And then you also, I know it's quite often a challenge to quantify the problems and give a baseline on how much of what we have before the project and how much of what have been destroyed and so on and so on. But you have to really make an effort here, because it is very important to quantify it as much as you can by using any references you can find within the country. And of course, for the nature projects, you also have location, and for others, you also have sector where the activities take place, and habitat species directly targeted, previous conservation efforts, and you go down to general project objectives. So this is the part where you lay out all the story of your project, so that the evaluator knows that it is an important problem that needs to be solved. I found it a bit puzzling that there is not much structure to this section. It just gives you the title and then general instruction on what should be included. So I tried myself to structure it somehow as much as we could, because this is a large section where you include a lot of information. So make sure you structure it somehow that it's easy for evaluator to see the main points that are there. Otherwise, if they get 10 pages of just general text where you have poured your heart in and described everything, it would be very difficult for them to focus on what is important. So please help them to do that by structuring the section with subsections or with titles or with bolds or larger fonts or colors, whatever you want. It doesn't say anywhere that you should avoid colors, actually, so you can also use this. This is again different from the previous application in a way. So yes, background. So this is an example from our old LIFE project, but it still stands. So you sort of have a habitat that you deal with, and this habitat covers 9 hectares in Latvia, and the habitat is in favorable but declining status as reporting in Annex Article 17 report. It was 2013 at that time, the most recent report. And Latvia holds 47 of this total coverage of this habitat in the boreal region. So, still one sentence in Latvian, sorry. Anyway, so you show that this habitat is threatened. You show how much of it you have in Latvia. You show that Latvia is important for this habitat in the boreal region because it holds 47 of the total coverage of the habitat in the whole region. So you sort of emphasize all the important points for the evaluator to see that really your project will make a difference by addressing this habitat. And then the same for threats. You sort of you say that abandonment of, this is one of the threats, for example, abandonment of grasslands is the key threat for this and this habitat, and you add information. We have 70% of these grassland habitats that are located in Natura not managed. You probably have some kind of assessment of this data from the a rural advisory center or something like that, that you have this paying agency for common agriculture policy. They might have some kind of this information, how many of grasslands are managed and how many are not. So try to quantify, don't be lazy on this because it's very, very important to do that. And it of course applies to all the other strands as well. It's just an example for nature here. Okay. Then you go to specific project objectives, and this is, you know, the basic writing objectives thing. But of course, objectives should be the answer to the problems that you mentioned before. So link them where possible with your project problems and background, and then try to use the keywords that are important for your life strand. So I don't know, depending on which you've chosen, you just try to use the same keywords so that the evaluator can see, okay, this project really answers to this and this challenge for life program and this objectives that are set in general for life program. So try to use the wording from here. We had, yes, for habitats it's easy because it's Natura 2000 and Habitats Directive or Paris Directive, so you don't have to make too much effort there. But we did for the previous project, so we will restore this and this many hectares of this and this habitat by applying this and this methods, for example, and so on. So this kind of quantifying as much as you can in the project. And of course, your objectives are answered to the threats. So we will restore habitats because there is decrease of the habitats areas, and there is poor connectivity of grasslands mentioned before, and we will do this and this to restore that connectivity. So it's all linked, and then evaluator sees, okay, yes, this project really answers to the problems for the particular item that it is addressing. And if one issue also that I've seen in applications, that if project addresses some kind of issue that have different problems affecting it, and if project chooses to only address some of the problems and not address the other problems, and if you have a good justification for that, don't forget to put it somewhere in the application, because evaluators will, most of the time, they understand the topic and they decide, okay, you're addressing the, I don't know, agriculture intensification, but why you will only work with this and this, and why don't you work with farmers or with the industries or whatever? So you have to have an answer for that. Otherwise, you will be asked that in the revision phase, and also it will lower the evaluation for your project, because they would assume that you just haven't thought about it, or so you are not addressing the whole complexity of the problem. But I realize that we often cannot address the whole complexity of the problem, but then we have to explain why. Or maybe you can say that other projects address that, or other initiatives, and we will just complement each other. It's the cases are different, but you have to address it. Okay, then there's the compliance with life program objectives and call topic, and this is straightforward. You just check what is for your what are the objectives for your sub-program, and you choose the one your project applies to. And then there is a more creative part that's called concept and methodology. I'm currently struggling with this one, actually, because it tells you to describe intervention logic of the project. So I started by writing actions and means. To achieve objective this, we will do this, and this will result in this and this activities, but it's proving to be a very long exercise, so I don't know what good to tell you, apart from make some kind of a scheme, also showing threats and solutions to threats if you can, and also explain main methodologies, and not only the methodologies for like for nature case, not only methodology for how you will restore the grasslands, for example, but also methodologies how you will approach communication, how you chosen the target audiences, or how you approach the demonstration. So there are different aspects to the methodology, not only the most obvious that we biologists call methodology. But again, try to keep it short and focused, because it's very, very easy to go very, very long in this part. But you will find yourself hitting the 120 pages limit quite soon. So intervention logic, as I already said, to restore the grasslands, we will do this and this, and to set up management system, and the wording is important. So to restore the grasslands, to set up management system, these are the parts of text from the objectives. So this is how I link it. The objective said to set up the management system, and here I already I make it easy for the evaluator. I say to set up the management system, we will do this and this. So he or she doesn't have to figure out to which objective this applies. It's kind of clear. I advise you to make it as simple as you can for the evaluators to grasp your project, because I mean they have very short time and very many projects, and if you're not perfect, they just skip over to the next one. Oh, okay, almost. Anyway, and then you have upscaling results of other EU-funded projects. This is also something that we already had in the previous life, so you just have to make sure that you describe if you take methodologies or knowledge from some other EU projects, then make sure to describe that here and in quite detail, not just listing, oh, we will take the knowledge from this project. No, it's not enough. You just say, we will use the GPS colors and we will use the methodology developed in this and this project for applying this. So trying to be a bit more specific, but don't make very long texts here, but be more specific than just listing the projects that you upscale. And this is an important chapter because it gives you bonus points in award criteria. And there are not so many bonus points in the new evaluation. So I would say cherish every bonus point you can get. So put an effort on this section. Complementarity with other actions, again, this is something that we had before. So whether, like, if you're addressing, for example, protected species, then if there are other initiatives in your country that are also working with the species, and make sure that you describe how you are not overlapping and how you complement each other. It's pretty straightforward exercise, but again, important to describe it to show that you are not overlapping, especially for nature project. Remember, describe how you are not overlapping with life IPs, because this is in our other countries. I think we already have life IPs, and if your topic to some extent overlaps, then make sure to describe it, because they will ask you anyway.
I'm sorry, Inga, Kęstutis have a question, I think, yes?
Okay, yeah.
Hello. Could you please tell me more what is mean, for example, in 1.5 section, not applicable for stage 1?
Yes. We had, we discussed this with Agna just before the seminar. I don't have any good news to you, because this year there's only one stage. So it means you have to fill all the parts, stage 1 and stage 2. The guidance that we have is for next 7 years. So it will apply better next year's, when you only have first the concept note and then the full proposal. But this year, because they're short in time and they couldn't make 2 stages, everything is pressed in one. So you should treat the application now as a full application. So you fill everything, stage 1 and stage 2. You fill everything, unfortunately. You cannot just fill stage 1, because that would not be complete, because we don't have 2 stages in this year's applications. We do the full application straight away, as many years ago it was before in life. All right. Synergies and co-benefits with other life sub-programs. This is new, because before we had synergies and co-benefits with other EU funded activities, something like that, like other policies only, but this is later. But now they want you to also point out on synergies and co-benefits with other life sub-programs. And as I said before, this year we have many life sub-programs. So make sure to go through them and think about it. Again, make sure to use time for this, because it gives you bonus points in the award criteria. Again, every bonus point is valuable, so make sure to think about this. whether you can see some linkages. We would definitely have some linkages. Nature projects would have with climate change for sure, and if you are creative, you can also think of other things. But this is a difficult part. But I would say if you can think about it and write it here. Also, quality of life is something that nature can really do much about. So try to be creative and specific as much as possible in describing this section. That would give you bonus points. And then this is the old section, synergies and co-benefits with other EU policy areas. And here you, in a way, a little bit, it might overlap with the LIFE sub-programs, because LIFE sub-programs are also covering some of the EU policy areas. But here, for example, you would deal with agriculture, health, jobs and growth, stuff like that as well. For some of the synergies that you describe here, make sure that it also shows in your KPIs, in the indicators, and make sure the information you give here is the same, it's consistent with what you put in the KPI tables. You know, we sometimes, in the process of writing, we change things and then we edit things and we forget that we had some other places where we had the same information. So make sure to check that for consistency as well. Okay, this was the first part about the background. Any questions at this stage? Okay, I'll just go on then. Then we have to describe the impact of our project. Ambition of the impacts is the title of the section, and there you quantify the impacts and try to link them as much as possible with other parts of the application. Well, I don't know what to say. It's pretty simple. I think if we restore something, that we will have the impact on the quality of the habitats, and we have the impact on the jobs, and we have the impact on awareness level in the society and so on. It's very project specific, but make sure that you link this also with your indicators where it applies. And of course, again, throughout the application, you go consistently. We have a problem, we address it like that. We have objective this, and to achieve that, we have actions this and this, and then we have impact this and this. So it's all consistent in a good application. In your case, yes, this impacts would be like the hectares and this, and of course also other things impact on carbon sequestration in case of grassland restoration and all that. So I just have few impacts here. Then you have to explain the credibility of impacts, and this is new section for LIFE applications. We didn't have that before, and so again, this is kind of a guessing game, but they tell you to show the steps in your calculations, how you have arrived at your impacts, and also the reference to publication studies and statistics. So for me, it's a difficult part because I haven't really figured out how to do it the best way. I think I will here try to describe the methodologies, and then also some kind of give some kind of list of references, like saying that this and this are suggesting that this and this method is better for this and this effect and so on. But I think this is very project specific, and I unfortunately do not have a very good advice on how to deal with this section yet, because we haven't had many evaluation rounds yet. And then we have sustainability of project results. So how you will ensure the impact of the project after the end and so on. This is a very classical thing for LIFE applications. And so make sure to describe if you're making something or restoring something, how you will keep it up after the project end. And if you're making some kind of service or I don't know, help desk or whatever, how it will continue working after the end of the project, and how the project partners will keep maintaining the effects achieved by the project. For some projects it's very easy, for some projects it's not that easy. Depends again on the topic. And for LIFE, nature, I would pay your attention to now they have specified that you have to maintain the ecological effect for at least 30 years after the project end. before we sort of got through with 20 years, but nowadays it's 30 years for sure. So if you are restoring habitats, you would need the owners, the landowners, to confirm that they will not destroy them for 30 years after the project end, which is a huge commitment and scares people very much. But this is the requirement now. So yeah, you could read that example later on in slides. Then we have exploitation of project results. Again, how others will use the results of your project, take them on and I don't know, make it their own or expand it and so on. So it's quite a difficult package to describe. Mostly for nature projects, it's just that if you create some methodologies and so on, this is how they can be multiplied. But they say that you should go beyond just regular replication efforts and information efforts. So this is kind of just beyond regular information and networking efforts. So this is more of a replication, and that this is difficult for quite many of us. So it depends on how you can describe it in this case. And also this goes to a mandatory work package for sustainability, replication, exploitation of the project results. But those who have written LIFE projects in the past already have noticed that the replication becomes more and more important in LIFE projects. And we have to figure out the ways how to show that the project knowledge approaches will be either transferred to a different sector or replicated in a different geographical context and all that. So this is nothing new, it's just different heading nowadays, but still important section also for evaluation of the project. And then they say sort of again catalytic potential, replication and upscaling, and again you sort of you're like exploitation of the project results, and then you go to catalytic potential, replication, upscaling, where you again more or less talk about the same issue. And again, that just tells us this is important that we pay attention to this part. Don't leave it till the very end when you're already tired from writing and just skip it over. Then we make sure you describe it, because this is, we will see it later, this is quite important for evaluation of the project as well. I cannot give you recipes for how to describe this because it's very, very project specific on the basis of particular project. So yeah. All right, then we have implementation part. Are there any questions for the previous one?
Mm-hmm. Yes, there is. Maybe Liutauras can ask.
Yeah, I have question regarding the obligation. This 2.3 slide, if you can show it. Yeah, next back. Yeah, this. Regarding the obligation, I mean, my question is, do we need to prove continuously maintenance? I mean, to maintain the ecological effect of the project. I mean, for example, farmers, do we need to get the, how to say, supporting letter from them, or any, I mean, documentation to prove the commission that the restored habitats will be maintained, because it's rather long period. And
it is rather a long period, and your example with farmers is exactly what we are dealing with in our new project. And if you say to the farmer that 30 years, the farmer just turns around and runs away. I know.
Yeah, because nobody knows what will happen with rural development program after 10 or 20 years.
Exactly. But this is the requirement, unfortunately. And what we have decided to do when the farmers become the partners in the project for the restoration, they say that they confirm that they will not. They will continue using this land for nature conservation purposes for at least 30 years. This is what they confirm. And so it basically means that. But no other documents, just the commitment form from them. So, and there's no need to register anything in the land cadastre or something like that. You only do that if you purchase the land. Then you have very strict rules for requirements. But in this case, farmers, and so if they're very interested, and if they were planning to, if they were like not planning to blow up their grasslands immediately, you can persuade them to agree to these 30 years, and still, well, who knows what will happen after 10 years? So we all know that, but you have to have it on paper in a way that otherwise they will ask you anyway. Sorry for that. No good news there. But I would say the commitment from the farmer that says that they will keep the land for nature, they keep nature management.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions? All right, then I go forward. So we come to the heart of the project, the work plan. So previously we had actions in life. Now we have work packages and tasks. So this is very confusing for those who have been dealing with life for a long time, because this is now the Horizon format. And the Horizon format works in work packages and tasks, and this is what we have to do now also. So 3.1 is the section where you summarize the whole work plan, all the work packages, and sort of give an overview of your work plan. So there are also some obligatory work packages you have to remember about. So there's work package 1, project management and coordination. Then there are also mandatory work package sustainability, replication, exploitation of project results. And for nature and biodiversity, there's also a mandatory work package monitoring and evaluation. So if you're writing a nature application, you already have 3 packages written out for you. And also it does not require a specific work package, but you should remember to include also activities for dissemination, communication, including networking with other LIFE projects, also impact monitoring and evaluation, which is not always the same as monitoring and evaluation of the project restoration or project nature values, but it's also, you should remember to, depending on what impacts you have shown your project will have, you should have a activity to actually be able to measure those impacts. So if you say that we will achieve that 20% of Lithuanian general public will change their attitudes to nature as a result of this project, you better have a monitoring for attitude of the general public to be able to prove that. So it's very important. So make sure that you have activities for impact monitoring and evaluation, and also activity for reporting on the progress with achieving the indicators in the LIFE web tool. You just have to be aware of this web tool where you will enter the first your planned indicators during the first 9 months, and then you will, at the end of the project, you will enter the final indicators that you have actually achieved. But make sure you have a task for that in the application, so you have planned the capacity for doing that. So in 3.1, you describe overall structure of how this your whole project comes together, and if you can also do some kind of graphical presentation. This is their own recommendation, asking for some kind of visual representation of your work plan. Well, good luck with that, because you have to fit in a small A4 page with not very huge flexibility there, but well, I haven't figured it out how I will do it for my application yet. And then number 3.2 is stakeholder input and engagement, where you also describe the stakeholders to your project and how you will address them. And although this looks like a very general section, it's actually a very important section, because you have to show them, the evaluators, that you have looked at all the stakeholders that are important for your project. Like again, if you're addressing the problem of agriculture and impact on habitats, then you have to make sure that you address the Ministry of Agriculture and other important agriculture stakeholders, not only play on the biologists' safe part of the playground. So make sure that you remember that, so you have all the stakeholders and you have actions for stakeholders, all types of stakeholders in your application. I have seen many evaluations where this is regarded as a weakness when we biologists decide only deal with part of the problem. So it's a stretching, I know. I'm not a fan of that myself, but it's key to making a good application. All right, and also, of course, the more support letters you can get from stakeholders saying, for example, you are making a methodology for, I don't know, whatever, for classifying habitats according to their priority in terms of connectivity, for example. It wouldn't hurt you to get a commitment letter from the, for example, from the Nature Conservation Agency or whatever it's called in Lithuania, saying that yes, they are interested in this kind of methodology and they are looking forward to receive it from you. It wouldn't hurt them much to write such a thing, and that does not oblige them to do anything with your methodology but if you involve them in the process and then they give you the support letter, it looks much better for the project than just the methodology that you describe and make in the project, invest funds in, and then put on a shelf and nobody uses it. So thinking that kind of concepts when you are thinking about letters of support for your application. Of course, don't go crazy and don't have 100 letters of support from every friend you can think of, but the most important key stakeholders should be there. At least if you cannot get them expressing like full support to your project, think about what is interesting for them and get them to express the support for the parts that are interesting for them. It doesn't have to be like a blank card saying whatever this project will do, who support it. No, it's just discuss and think about it. Okay, and then you get to work packages, where for each work package you have duration, lead beneficiary, objectives, activities, tasks, and milestones and deliverables. There are also some mandatory deliverables. So project page, a website. Yeah, I will get back to that one. Also, exploitation plan or for life itself, afterlife conservation plan, extract from the project data for KPI indicators. Also, if you have a land purchase, this digital copies of land register, but it's all written out in the guidance of the form. About the websites, there's a major change from the previous LIFE program, because my experience in the previous LIFE program was that they always, LIFE program wanted to have specific project websites. Now they have turned it totally around and said that we don't want a specific project website. It has to be a website under the beneficiary's website, unless you have a specific reason to have a dedicated project website. This is a change. This is like a 180 degrees change from the previous LIFE program. Pay attention to that. Don't go just by as business as usual and make a specific website, but describe that your website will be a part of beneficiary's website. No specific websites. I don't know. Okay. And then there's a bit of a confusion with milestones and deliverables as such, because they say that milestones are major outputs, do not put all the small things in, and also for deliverables, the project outputs, and they are like total for the whole project, not per tasks. But go through the guidance, you will figure it out yourself. But as my previous experience with LIFE was that they wanted as many milestones and deliverables as possible. Now it seems to me that they have gone the other way, asking to limit the number of them. So it will be a balancing act to see what they exactly want. We will see how it works out. And then, yeah, this is how the whole page looks, where you have to enter your information. So this is you just you talk in months, so it's month 1 to month 10 or so, whatever. Then you have a lead beneficiary number and name. So number is according to the order you have put them into the system of eGrant. Objectives and expected results. Here you link them to objectives and results that you have described in earlier sections, and then you go to activities and tasks. Personally, I will do also, I will summarize the tasks in packages, not in work packages, but activities, and then activities would have tasks, because I have very complicated project and I can't just deal with 5 work packages and 20 tasks in just a mixture of tasks and all of them, but it's up to you. again, we are trying here, so I have no good solutions for that. If the project is smaller and simpler, I think you would just be fine with task 1, task 1.1, task 1.2, and so on under work packages. They recommend not to have too many work packages. I don't know what's too many. I'd probably say don't go above 7 or 8 or 7 or 6. I don't know. They don't give you a specific number. But they don't say don't have too many work packages. But organize them, I think, by the logics of the project. You know, I can tell you in our project we do management. We have management and planning. Then we have restoration. Then we have a demonstration and advice to farmers. Then we have monitoring, the obligatory one, and replication, networking, the obligatory one. So we have 6 work packages in our project that we're writing this year. I don't know. We'll see whether it's good or bad. And then yes, the tasks are, well, it's obvious what's tasks, something that you do and where you have some kind of output that leads to something else or doesn't, or to result, stuff like this. Yeah, so I went quite quickly through this, but this is the major part of the descriptions, of course, where you have all the work packages, all the tasks and all that, but this is just straightforward writing what you do, how you do that, what kind of resources you have there, and so on. So it's sort of obvious, but it will be difficult to keep it to the total. Still, we are talking about 120 pages limit for B section. This is still B section. Then we have timetable, where you arrange your tasks by quarters. If you have projects shorter than 2 years, then you arrange your task by months, but usually life projects are not shorter than 2 years. And then you have impact monitoring and reporting. See how you will monitor and report your impacts. This is kind of a description part, where you describe what you have already described in tasks. In a way, you just summarize it, emphasize the important things, how you will do that. We already discussed impact monitoring, so I won't say much more about that. And then, so yeah, the sections that come after this timetable are kind of summarizing and describing the things you have already described in your work packages. So impact monitoring, so of course you would have tasks for that in the work package, but here you sort of explain this, you know, we decided to do it like this, and this will allow you to come to this and this conclusions and report that and that and action that and that. So you pull it together between different tasks, show that you have addressed in your head this impact monitoring challenge and reporting challenge, so you have it in hand. The same about communication, dissemination and visibility. I cannot emphasize it enough how important it's to define your target audiences for your communication. It is really very important, because general audience as your target audience, general public, is not specific enough, I would say. And depending on your project, it is important that you know what kind of target audiences you have. For example, in our first GrassLIFE project, we had a focus on farmers, of course, on farmers that own biologically valuable grasslands, not banal farmers. And then we had also people that are the ones who would be interested to purchase products that are coming from nature areas that are clean and with high added value for nature and with story. So this target audience is young families that are very conscious of ecological issues also. Of course, not all of them, but the part that is. And they are mostly young people with small kids that are living in cities. So this kind of exercise. And why do you need to decide on your target audience? Because you address them by different means. It's very important to understand that, for example, what kind of media farmers use, what are they interested in? Personally, I had a misconception that farmers are mostly reading, you know, old newspapers in their municipalities. We did a quick scan of farmer audiences just this autumn for a new project. We had farmers saying that actually 78% of our farmers are using YouTube videos as the main way to get the information they're interested in. And quite many of them use quite freely Russian, Latvian, and English, so it doesn't have to be Latvian. So it's very interesting and sometimes surprising how your conceptions about the audiences are actually different. And then once you know what kind of information your audience is interested in and how they get that information, then you decide on what kind of communication activities you do. And if you have some kind of screening of target audiences prior to the project, it would be very good to describe it here. Say that, we know our target audiences and we know how to reach them, and this is why we have activities like that, and that in our project. So I cannot stress it enough, because I think the time of general information on just, putting out the press release or general news item on the website is just past. We are past that because there's too much information, and people just are very careful with what they read and what they choose to. So we have to adapt, and we have to have communication professionals in our project. So they're biologists, the ones of you who are biologists, we all need, I am a biologist myself, but I know that communication professional in the team, it just makes all the difference. So if you haven't done it yet, please do that. That will help you. Yes, the question.
Yes, Mr. Lutauras, I think, have a question. Yes.
Yes, please come back to slide 3.3. 3.3, yes, and it's noted that coordinated tasks cannot be subcontracted. My question is, what do you mean? I see as an example. For example, if coordinator is the task of coordinator is, for example, restore a hydrological regime, but the coordinator do not have relevant capacity and certificates, etc., and it must contract the relevant, relevant institutions or not partners.
No. Don't worry. It's not that. The coordinator task is meant the project management task. So if you, as an organization, are the lead beneficiary, the coordinator in the project, you cannot subcontract it to another company who would manage the project in general. You see, this is the coordinator task. It's not the other tasks in the project, including restoration and so on, but this is the coordinator task as such, as the task of coordination. That cannot be subcontracted. You would have to have a project manager yourself, and you would have to be the organization that takes care of financial management, of attending live meetings, of reporting to live. You cannot subcontract that as a whole task. Okay. That is what is meant here, so don't worry.
Clear. And another question, in case of international project, if different national partners are responsible for very similar, almost the same task in different countries, for example, restoration of overgrown wetlands. Is the same? It sounds as the same task, but it is implemented in different countries. It means that it will be coordinated by different partners. And what could be a solution to split as different tasks for each country, the same name or?
You see here it's a work package. So this is a description of the whole work package. This work package, for example, in your case would be called restoration, and you as a lead organization, for example, or some other organization would take the whole overview, would be responsible for overview of the whole restoration package. But here in the tasks, it could be several participants that are involved per task. So whether you have a task called bush cutting in overgrown meadows in, I don't know, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, and so on. This could be one task, or you could choose to split it between the tasks, bush cutting in Latvia, bush cutting in Lithuania, bush cutting in Estonia. It's up to you, but you can have different participants involved in per task, so it's not a problem. Only here you have lead beneficiary, but it's the one that is like keep an eye on the activity on the work package as such. It's on this lead beneficiary is on work package level. Here you have you can have many participants per task, so it's not a problem. It's up to you how if you split this by country, or you have one task and all the participants here. It is not. There's no right and wrong. It's just how huge your project is and how specific, how huge are those country individual activities, I would say. And if they're voluminous, it's maybe better to split them in different tasks. If they're like, I don't know, Estonia does only 20 hectares, Lithuania does 200 hectares, maybe it's you can keep it in one task as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Where were we? We were here with the resources. All right. So the resources is what we work with in the application. And so in section 4.1, you describe how your consortium is set up and what role each partner has and why this partner is in the project. So there must be a reason. So you just have it here. And also remember that you have participant information annex where you have the full information on partners. So you don't have to repeat it here. Here you only give this kind of description why you have the partner this and that in your project. And the same way you describe project management, you have a task, work package project management in the task description already described. Again, so you pull it together here, explaining the general principles and how it's built, but try not to repeat what you have said also in the project task description. Then there's green management, and this is something that we quite often struggle with, but it's not that difficult. Just take some time to think about whether you are using a green public procurement, and if you're not, maybe you can, because it's important. And also how you will minimize the environmental footprint of your project. If you have some certified environmental management systems in the organization, perfect, don't forget to mention them as well. So this is how you will be even greener than we usually are, let's say like that. So it wouldn't require huge texts, but you have to address this issue because it's also one of the issues they look at when they are looking at your project. So here we have already discussed that table we had. So resources 4.4 is just the budget table, reference to the budget table. You don't have to repeat it there. And then 4.5 is risk management, the usual risks description of the project. Don't forget to mention COVID pandemic is a risk, by the way. Probably want to get rid of that soon. And the usual risks you have, and the likelihood of the risk to occur also, and how much would be the potential impact of the risk on your project. And then, of course, how you would tackle if that risk takes place. Some of the risks you already tackle by designing the project. Also, that could be like you could design the project in a way that you minimize the risk of dependence on one person only. You have several people in parallel working on stuff. So there's different ways to deal with this. And make sure you pay attention to this section as well. We have gone through the whole structure of the application. I hope you're still full of enthusiasm about writing the application. I have one more section, that would be the evaluation criteria, because I personally think it's very important to look at the evaluation criteria prior you start writing your application, because then you have somewhere in the background of your mind, you have a feeling and understanding about what is important to emphasize. But if there are any questions about the structure, we could take them now. I also have some questions written down in the end of the application, so we could also go forward, but maybe there's some questions already there. Okay, I just go forward then. The award criteria. This is the new scoring. So you have 10 to 20 points on relevance. You have 10 to 20 on impact, but impact has the weight of 1.5, so impact is even more impactful than just 20, as you can count. Quality, again, 10 to 20. Resources, 10 to 20. And then the bonus questions, I already mentioned some of them. Synergies with other LIFE programs, you see, you can get 2 bonus points. And believe me, those bonus points can make all the difference. Because there will be a competition, I assume, and 2 points is a lot. It could leave you above or below the line. Outermost regions, of course, we don't really have much hope with those bonus points. Then upscaling the results of EU projects already, we talked about it, because we know that it's important bonus criteria, and we will pay attention to this section to get those 2 bonus points. Then we have exceptional catalytic potential. And here, for the nature, it's very, very, very difficult to achieve, I think. Maybe some other strands and projects in some other strands might have a chance with this one. I wouldn't put, for my project, I don't put any hope on this bonus 4. And then bonus 5, transnational cooperation. So this is classical. If you have transnational partners, then you get this. But the partners have to make sense. It can't be, for example, in our project, in our new projects, we will have a UK partner that will do a small task for us, but we will not be transnational projects due to the fact that we have a UK partner that will do the farm profitability analysis for us. A truly transnational project will be the project where you do actions on in both countries, like on the ground activities, that the same. So make sure that you, if you think your project is transnational, you check that it's really transnational in sense of having real on-the-ground activities and some kind of balance between the countries. It doesn't mean it has to be the same scale per each country. For example, last year we have been funded application for restoration of Fennoscandia and wooded meadows, where Estonians are the lead partner. They restore 500 of Fennoscandia and wooded meadows. We in Latvia restore 200 hectares. But this is still fine. But the rest, the whole package of activities is pretty much similar between the countries. That is transnational project. Okay. So let's go through those things. So relevance, when they look at the relevance. So they want to see that you are addressing specific objectives of the LIFE program. Remember, when we discussed description, that was one of the chapters. So also it's specific priorities that are defined in the call for proposal. So make sure to read the call for proposal and LIFE program as such. Then how sound and logical is your concept and methodology? Again, there was a section where you were asked to describe it. So remember that this will make 0 to 20 points in your evaluation, and also to what extent you have these additional synergies and co-benefits with other policy areas. So you see, these are like the topics that we normally consider soft topics, and we maybe don't pay too much attention to them, but this is 0 to 20 points with minimum 10 points to pass. So if you are not careful, you might just fall through in this relevance criteria, and not go. If you don't get at least 10 points here, you don't get further. But if you get 10 points here, you won't get further either, because the competition is fierce, and you want those 10 points. Lacking 10 points would just kill your application. So make sure you put an emphasis on all these topics in the descriptions, remembering that relevance is one of the important criteria, giving you up to 20 points. Same with impacts. So impacts, again, how credible, how ambitious are your impacts? Of course, you cannot make very ambitious impacts that are totally not credible. So you will have to walk the line between ambition and credibility. And also sustainability of the project results. Again, something that we usually just describe in passing. Well, yeah, everything will work fine. No, you have to pay attention to describing that. And then also exploitation of project results. So how they will be multiplied and replicated and upscaled and so on. Again, to me, it would seem like something soft section, but it would the same story. It's 0, 10, 20 points story here. And then quality, of course. Here we go and look at the work plan of the whole section, the largest description of your whole project. This is where your work plan, your stakeholders come in, if your project has appropriate geographic focus, and whether you have plans to monitor and report your impacts, and how good are your communication dissemination activities, how much they are thought through, how much you focus on the target groups again. And I would personally think that this should have more points, because this is the core. It's my work plan, but now you see it's here. It's the same as previous two subsections. So make sure that you have these award criteria in mind when describing your application and filling in your B forms. And then you have resources. How good is your project team? Whether your budget and resources are consistent with the work plan. So whether you have maybe forgotten something or put too much budget on something that does not really is not really cost efficient. Whether you have sufficiently described cost items. This is a challenge because, as I said before, the confusing budget tables are not really helping us to be sufficiently detailed on that. But make sure you find a solution that suits your project to be sufficiently detailed in describing your cost items. And then the green procurement, again, it's here. And the value for money of the proposal. Very, very important. Keep that in mind, and where possible, mention that you, where possible, assess yourself, and then mention in the application that you have assessed the value for money. And this is why it costs this and this amount of money, because of reasons. So that you are aware of the value for money challenge, and you have assessed and addressed in application this question. All right. Now I have finished my monologue, and I'm waiting for questions. And we had some questions with Agnes before as well, but you can, yeah. What questions do you have?
Mr. Lutauras has a question, I think, yes.
Again, I have two questions. One regarding criteria for resources. If you can back to the slide. I mean, my question is, does the expertise should be presented at institutional level, or and skills, or at personal level, like staff expert, because in horizontal projects they were required something like not CV of experts of the staff, but I mean the skills of experts. How is in life?
Yeah, it's a very, very good question, Litauras. I actually cannot say for sure, because it's the first time that they are asking us to describe this. But I personally will try to address this by, well, you see, this is just the evaluation criteria, and then we think back to the sections that we were asked to describe. And we were not asked to describe individual persons anywhere. We were asked to describe the consortium, the partners. So I would go with that, except the annexes that I didn't show you. The annexes where you describe all the participants, like, for example, a university, this and that, and there you have the key staff. And in description of key staff, you will have some description about the individual personnel there. So you, in a way, by filling correctly different parts of the application, you will give them the information needed for addressing this award criteria. So it's both. It's a mixture. By describing consortium, you give them the answer about project team in terms of organization, and by filling the project participant annex, you will give them also the information about the individual people.
It means that you must have a team which will be, I mean, how to say, employed or will work in a project, because sometimes the institutions, they way, I mean, first way preparing, I mean, some experts or staff were preparing the application, and later we're collecting the full staff team, but it means that in that case, better just during the preparation of application already have, the team of at least of the main experts. Right?
It is. You can do it both ways, because if you can, it would be better to have already your team, at least in your head. Maybe not with the work contracts yet, but the application, the partnership annex actually does not ask you to describe what kind of tasks the people will have, the key people you mentioned in the participant form. They ask you to describe the experience of the person, like the sort of summarized CV, but they don't ask you to give the role to each of the key persons you described there. So I think what you would just have, like, organization Latvian Fund for Nature, and then the key persons, this and this one is good at that, this one is habitat manager, this is restoration expert, and so on. And then if when I start the project, some of those people won't be with the organization anymore, well, what can you do? You just take somebody else. You don't have to, you are not obliged to keep those people, like, for sure. But normally in practice, it happens like that anyway.
And one question regarding criteria 3 also.
Criteria 3. Yeah. Quality, yes.
Yeah. This is mobilization. Education mobilization of relevant stakeholders. I mean, what do we mean mobilization? I mean, what will be involved? We should identify all potential stakeholders and then to describe which will be involved, or we should just only to have main focus on the stakeholders which really will be related, involved in the implementation of the project, not directly involved, but which will be, in terms, which will be, actually will be involved or informed or something like that, which is what is balance identification and mobilization?
Yeah, it's a good question. Again, well, you see, when I, as evaluator, look at this criteria, I will look back to the sections where you describe your target groups and main stakeholders and your intervention logic. So I will try to look for answers to this to be able to evaluate, because these award criteria are not the parts that we fill in. It's just for our knowledge that evaluators will use them. So we just look back on the stakeholders and mobilization. I would say that, for example, in the case of you restoring habitat per bird, something, and there is a problem that these bird habitat areas have decreased dramatically due to agricultural pressure, for example. So normally your stakeholder would be the Ministry of Agriculture. You would try to persuade them to change some kind of rural development support rules, or make a new rural development sub-measure that would address this and that bird. So this is how you mobilize stakeholder. But of course, this is like a huge, great plan, but we know how difficult it is to persuade the Ministry of Agriculture to do anything. But so this is the ways you should be thinking about. Or maybe you want to mobilize the farmers that own the lands where these birds nest to do something, to change their practices a little bit. Maybe by changing their practices a little bit, they can do some good also to the bird species. So it's up to you and depends on your context. But again, this is, and then if you decide that you want to influence the farmers, their decisions on the farm, so you would probably have to have the information that would show them that the changes would not be so dramatic and they would not be unprofitable for them. So it depends. Or you maybe market for the new sub-measure to give them money to do that, or you try to show them that this wouldn't endanger their profits by changing a little bit. So the strategies might be very different, but the mobilization is something where you mobilize stakeholders to do something for the benefit of your project.
And what is your opinion? Does it mean that to mobilize more identified stakeholders. I mean, we can help to during the scoring, during evaluation process to collect more scores. I mean, for evaluators, mobilization of more identified stakeholders is something like I mean, added value of a project.
I think the question, I think the issue is relevance of stakeholders. So you would have to show, as we discussed earlier, you have to show them that you have thought about all relevant stakeholders to your topic. I think the numbers are made, it's again very topic specific, but the relevant stakeholders should be all addressed with your project. Or you should say that we know that there is one relevant stakeholder that we do not address because, I don't know, other project addresses that stakeholder or something like that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we had our questions. How to choose the right key performance indicators and how to decide how many of them to include. There was one question that I found very interesting. So we already discussed the mandatory form, the mandatory indicators and non-mandatory, and then there's a lot of answers about KPIs in the frequently asked questions file by the LIFE program. So have a look at this, because there are some changes. For example, the indicators are not the same as previous indicators in previous LIFE programs. So if you have a LIFE application from previous year that you want to revive, that wouldn't work. You would have to look at the new indicators. Also, you would not have to submit the Excel file as you had to do before. You do it now in these Part C forms, but make sure when you fill in the C form, you check that that C annex really shows in your extract when you have the compressed PDF file at the end for the whole application, because themselves, in somewhere in the issues they have written that there might be a glitch that your C annex does not show in the whole application form. In that case, you just have to make an annex yourself and add it to non-mandatory annexes. But make sure to check whether your KPIs actually show in the PDF document that you have at the end of the project. So there are different issues for the KPIs, and so make sure you have enough time to think about it and to link it to the applications. Then we have, I thought maybe you might be interested also to talk about the rates, and we already covered it a bit. So, previously, the organizations, when they were calculating the rates, they used different productive days per year. Now we have to all use the 215, and you don't really have to write the rates anywhere, because I assume they will just subtract the rate themselves from the total personnel cost and total workloads. It's a bit confusing to me, but this is how it is. Of course, for your internal planning, you will anyway deal with rates. Otherwise, how can you enter the information? But don't be surprised that you don't have to enter personnel rates anywhere anymore. Also, 2% rule, the very good information for universities and larger organizations, government organizations. 2% rule does no longer apply. So at least our University of Latvia was very happy to hear this news that the 2% rule does no longer. If you don't know what 2% rule is, fine, you don't have to know, because it does no longer apply. Anyway, so also I had a question from a Latvian participant. What kind of communication activities are most attractive to project reviewers? And that was an interesting question. And I thought maybe you might also want to hear an answer to that. There's no clear answer to that, because it depends on your project. Because project reviewers don't care what is more attractive or not. Of course, there are obligatory activities that you have to do. I already mentioned them when I described the tasks. But I mean, try to think what makes sense for your target audiences. That is very important. We come back to the target audiences and importance of understanding what do you want to say with the project. Because, you know, again, you already see that this is kind of passionate topic for me, but just printing brochures for the sake of printing brochures so we like them, it's no longer. I think it's just a waste of money. And then I have copied also the question from the frequently asked questions. Can I include in the project budget for a visitors center? And the rules haven't changed much. They say that no infrastructure is not, they don't like the infrastructure. And there could be some exceptions, but we recently had a project where they even took out very small visitor infrastructure. So I would say don't really try to do that, because infrastructure could be funded by other EU funds. That's why they don't like it. And then, yes, you already asked me the question about only one stage or 2 stages. Yeah, so yes, the sad answer is that we have to fill everything. If there is a form, you fill it. We have stage 1 and stage 2. Okay. I have covered your questions and my own questions as well. If there are any last burning questions, I'm still here. Litauras, don't you have any more questions? I know that you're writing application this year. Okay. Where to look for information then?
Yeah, the only question where I will be able to look at your presentation, today's presentation.
I think Agne will tell you that at the end. Yes, sure. Okay. So here are the links, and in my presentation you can click on those links. I checked them; they should be working fine. I would especially recommend you to look at call document, definitely. Online manual is more for dealing with the new and very scary e-grant system. And then FACUS, this is very useful. I had some questions from that document already here. And they're frequently asked questions for different strands. So if you are, for example, planning a project not nature, I probably was not covering your questions today, but there's a lot of questions that have been asked and answered in that document. And videos, maybe not the basic ones about LIFE program, but I really found useful this financial side video. It's not very long and it doesn't answer all the questions, but it would give you a good feeling about what how they see the new program. And if you are still puzzled, and I'm pretty sure you are, about LIFE key performance indicators as well, and it will this video will also explain you how to fill in that C form. So I would recommend you to look at that one as well. And then, of course, the calls and evaluation criteria. So here you have more general information that we already discussed today. Standard application form, this is what you will be using, but again, I remind you, for filling in, download the one from the system. Do not use the one on these general links, because there could be changes. LIFE program, of course, please read it, it's new and, well, everything is different. So yeah, award criteria are described more in detail in call document as item 9, if you want to look at them more in detail than we had today in the application, in the presentation today. So yeah, these links should be able to help you to guide yourself through the whole thing of new life. That's all from me. I will take off the presentation now so I can maybe see some faces. Yes, at least one friendly face there.
Okay, maybe there are some questions. Oh no, I don't see. Then I'd like to thank Inga one more time for your detailed and valuable information and advices. We will share the record with you, and if it's okay for Inga, the slides with you. Okay, thank you. And also we will share the link to Latvia seminar, How to Plan a Project in Life Circular Economy and Quality of Life, as I said. And as far as I remember, After deeper analysis, we will share the answer of Aušra's questions about the budget. Yes, and thank you all for being here and for the questions, and have a great day and good lunch.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.